Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
It's a really nice drive on all the Valley freeways. No problems there. In Wasatch County, we do have traffic affecting both north and southbound directions of Highway 40 Main Street at 4th North in Heber. Now, on the southbound side, 2 right lanes are blocked with an accident. For 2 days only, the Zero Res Food Drive is getting even better. Schedule your Zero Res cleaning today and pay just $25 per room. When you donate to the food drive, offer ends Tuesday, so call Zero Res for full details. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Tonight's low in the lower 40s, then tomorrow we're mostly sunny and 64 degrees. Right now, mostly cloudy, 63. I'm Becky Bruce, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the headline today, President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, passed away late Sunday night at the age of 95. But beyond the headlines, President Ballard was a leader who built bridges, proclaimed a special witness of Jesus Christ, ministered to the one, and was a crucial family link in a legacy of faith. President Ballard blessed people of every faith and people of no faith here in Utah and all around the world. Most of his apostolic ministry took place far away from cameras and microphones, meetings and pulpits. It was about people. So it's time to think again about the life and ministry of President M. Russell Ballard. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, on some days there really is no place to begin, and when you think of the life and legacy of President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there are 27 million places to start, but we're going to start with one of our favorite inside sources, Sherry Dew, and Sherry's the Executive Vice President and Chief Content Officer at Deseret Management Corporation. And Sherry, we appreciate you carving out some time on a day that is got to be a mixed bag of great joy, great gratitude, and grief for a lot of us left behind.
My pleasure to be here, Boyd, and you have just expressed it so well. It's been my pleasure, privilege, honor, really, to know President Ballard for many years, several decades. I hesitate to say that because it ages me, but for a number of decades. And so when somebody's 95, has been without his dear wife, Barbara, for 5 years, and has soldiered on, it's hard to feel sad for him, but he leaves a gaping hole for many of us, and he certainly does for me, because he's played such a role in so many things that I've had the privilege to touch in some way, and certainly to learn from him. That to imagine him not actually walking the earth and picking up the phone and calling and suggesting something or asking for something, it's hard to imagine him not being here.
Yeah, and he was such a dynamic leader of such confidence, quiet confidence, but resolute. We were talking before we came on air that he's going to storm the castle, scale the mountain, take the commanding heights, go out to get Moby Dick with a jar of tartar sauce with him because he knows he's got it. But you saw that over decades in terms of that resilience and that vision and confidence of we have something to do and let's go make that happen.
He would just keep doing it, and he would do it in a lot of ways. I've always said, and you really just said it, that, okay, here's somebody who will march up San Juan Hill and plant a flag. And if it was a issue that he believed in or cared about or thought needed to get done, and let's say it didn't get done right away. There's some things in a large organization that take a while to get done, or the timing just isn't right. When you first have a vision of, oh, this is where we should go. I really think he was quite visionary.
Yeah.
He could see things that needed to happen. He would keep pushing for those things that he thought needed to happen, and really wasn't much inclined, at least from what I could see, to let up on those things. An example of that might be as different ways to communicate. He himself was a fine communicator. He served as, when I first met him, he was the chairman of the board of Deseret Book. He was also a general authority who was an author. And so as an employee of Deseret Book, that's where I first became acquainted with him.
Wow.
And became acquainted with the reality that he cared deeply about the restoration, about the prophet Joseph Smith and his great-great-grandfather Hiram Smith, telling that story.
Yeah.
And he was looking always for ways to tell the story. And it might be in a book, but it might be on TV. It might be on a radio station. It might be, he was a great proponent of BYU TV. He was a great proponent of different ways of communicating in the spirit of let's tell the story of the restoration of the gospel, which he felt so deeply about.
Yeah, he truly was one of those prophets, as you said, who could see far ahead and around corners, and was willing to stay with the question long. I was reflecting this morning and talking about his connection with President Nelson in terms of the name of the church. Back in 2011, President Ballard talked about that in a general conference. President Nelson had talked about that previously, and then we get to 2018, 2019, and this emphasis on the name of the church. You were in a conversation with President Ballard and Elder Gong, talking about the fact that everyone was saying this was impossible, that you couldn't really create an emphasis on a name like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But he didn't flinch. He didn't bat an eye. He was certain that there was something to this.
You know, I was in a meeting that was called where President Ballard stood up and with a number of key individuals, managing directors, executive directors at church headquarters, and then some of us that are more on the periphery, me over at Deseret Management Corporation and a few others. He stood up and read a letter that had come to him was either from President Nelson or from the full First Presidency. I'm not sure which. Surely it was from the full First Presidency, where they basically tasked him as president of the quorum, acting president of the quorum, and the quorum of the 12 to take on this impossible task of reinforcing and reinvigorating devotion to the full and correct name of the church. And he basically said, and I don't remember the exact words, but he basically read the letter and then said, we're going to do this. And I imagine that anybody who was in that room knew that even though everybody on the periphery was saying, you can't do that. You can't do that in an internet age. You'll lose SEO. You'll lose all this search authority. You'll lose too many people want to call us Mormons or Mormonism or whatever. It's not doable. And he stood up and said, we're going to do it. And then with help from the Quorum of the 12, and then, of course, many others to assist at headquarters, I'm sure. I don't know all the details of that by any means. Look at the progress that was made in a fairly short amount of time. It's not perfect. There's a lot of work yet to be done, I suppose, but extraordinary progress. And again, if you want somebody to charge up the hill and plant a flag and say we're going to do it, that was just one of the things in his nature that made him a very dynamic leader.
I want to get to something else that I think was part of that dynamic leadership nature and culture. He always had that vision of the things that happen far away from the cameras and the pulpits, and you often reference it in the context of a kitchen cabinet. He always had people around him that he was getting insight and advice, but he was also spotting a lot of leaders and tapping a lot of leaders on the shoulder along the way.
Let's just say he was a good delegator.
I think he was building an army is what he was doing.
No, he really was, and he would meet this person somewhere and say, oh, that person would be really great at doing this. And then another person somewhere else and say, that person would be great at doing that. And I think he was quite exceptional in spotting energy and talent and drive and capability and saying, let's put those people to work.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually kind of a gift of his. I used to tease him a little when he would hand out yet another assignment and say, yeah, you got it. I got to hand it to you. You are a very good delegator.
and he loved a good quip.
He did.
He always had, a quick one-liner to come back.
Great sense of humor.
Just super amazing, and especially in all of those settings he would find himself in all around the world. There was always a bright moment. There was always a reason to laugh. There was always a reason to talk about good chocolate or a good dessert coming up at the end of the day.
Definitely. It was always a pleasure to be with him. I'd say this. I think I could say to you of the it had to be hundreds of times that I was in his presence, I always left feeling better. I never left feeling weighed down, even if I happened to be the delegee who had a new job to be done. I left feeling better because he always made me feel as though he appreciated what anyone was doing to help with anything. And no, I always felt better.
I want to get to one more thing before we take just a quick break. And one of the hallmarks, I think, of his ministry was this whole idea of widening the welcome. He was so determined that anyone, whether they walked into a church building, whether they met a member of the Church of Jesus Christ, or just had an interaction somewhere, that welcome had to be so wide and so personal and so specific, because that was the task. It really was about the one, and making sure that people understood that you love God and you love your neighbor, and everybody's your neighbor.
I think that is a really astute observation, and also an important characteristic to describe him. One of his gifts as a leader was not just that he was assertive and he could push something forward, but he had a gift, certainly a knack, an instinct for making anybody in his circle feel welcome and invited, and it didn't matter. If you start scrolling through all the pictures that you're seeing being published today, you see how often he has his arm around a little girl or a little boy or a teenager or for an adult for that matter. You see how often that he's just bringing people into his circle. And honestly, he was that was natural for him. And I think it's one of the things that made him especially effective in reaching out as he traveled the world.
Yeah. We're going to stay with the conversation here with Sherry Dew, Executive Vice President, Chief Content Officer, Deseret Management Corporation, as we continue to look at the life and legacy of President M. Russell Ballard, Acting President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Quorum of the 12 Apostles, passed away Sunday evening at the age of 95. When we come back, we're going to stay with the question and the conversation. We'll look at the great insight from the small talk of great leaders. We'll talk about his international influence, his interfaith influence, and the legacy that he leaves both on a church and on people all around the world. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. KSL is more than a news station. It's a meeting place.
What an extraordinary and forgiving nature. I love stories like that.
It's where neighbors and coworkers engage with the community, where anyone can get the very latest news from Midvale to the Middle East.
Police have located the vehicle.
Mitt Romney says he's not considering another run for president.
They've opened up that right lane of travel.
This week, join the anchors and hosts Utah has relied on for generations. We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Some days, my active psoriatic arthritis makes it hard to get in the game. Now, the ball is in my court, thanks to treating my skin and joints with Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults.
Nothing is everything.
Skyrizi helps with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. For those who also have plaque psoriasis, 90% clearer skin is possible with just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, there's nothing like clearer skin and better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi and visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Tonight at 10, are protective orders working?
Armed abusers are incredibly dangerous.
Protective orders are designed to keep guns out of the hands of abusers.
I am a mother that is trying to raise my children in a state where they should feel protected.
A KSL investigation reveals gaps in how those protections are being carried out. Domestic violence and firearms, tonight on KSL 5 News at 10.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. We're reflecting on the life and legacy of President M. Russell Ballard of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who passed away at the age of 95 late last evening. And we're so thrilled to have joining us in studio Sherry Dew, Executive Vice President, Chief Content Officer at Deseret Management Corporation. And Sherry, as we continue this look at his life and legacy, we talked before about his ability to see ahead and around corners and to utilize people maybe in unexpected ways. And I think one of the real hallmarks and maybe landmarks of President Ballard's legacy and apostolic ministry was the use of councils and the connecting to every member of the church, pulling in the women of the church in new and powerful ways, using that council system. You had a bird's eye view to see some of that happen. Give us a sense of what you saw.
Well, one of the privileges I had was again, representing Deseret Book, working with him to produce both Our Search for Happiness and Counseling with Our Counsels, two of his earliest books. And I can tell you, again, I've known him for 35 plus years. And so I've sat in his office many, many times over that period of time when, based upon whatever church assignment I had, on whatever level, we would inevitably find ourselves talking about the important voice of women in the church. And I can just tell you uncategorically, without question, that he believed in how important the balancing views and participation of women were, but in church councils. And he taught it and he preached it to just about anybody who would listen. I'm sure many heard it more than I did, but I heard it enough to know, and I experienced it myself. I experienced myself that he would say, well, what do you think about this, Sherry? Let's say we're working on a project for Deseret Book or whatever the project would have been at the time. Well, what do you think? And I always felt like he wanted to know, and he was listening and taking into consideration whatever it was I had to offer. So it was easy for me to believe, because of the way he treated me, that when he talked about how important the voice of women were in councils of the church, he really believed it.
Yeah.
He not only spoke it and preached it, but he acted on it.
Yeah, and I think that was so indicative because it's one thing to have a seat at the table. It's another to have a voice at the table. And when you have someone like a President Ballard who is asking those questions, who is listening deeply, of course, it goes back in his own family line, Mary Fielding Smith, some of those early extraordinary pioneer women, all the way back to the early women in the New Testament. President Ballard seemed to have a unique connection and understood the power and the influence of women in the home, in community, and in society.
Yep, he was, this is probably a horrible way to describe it, but it's like he was an equal opportunity employer, if you will. He would employ and deploy the talents, the energy of just about everyone. And he felt that almost anyone was worthy of his attention. Now, I'll give you an example of that. You and I were both in Sharon, Vermont with him a few years ago. He was there along with Elder Christofferson and his wife, Kathy, and it was a joy to have him walk along the Smith birthplace and reflect. But I happened to come down as we were checking out of the hotel. I happened to come down just as he was checking out. So I'm standing back 4 or 5 paces, watching what's going on at the desk in the hotel. And he has thoroughly engaged the desk clerk in a complete and total conversation about who he was, what he was doing there, the restoration of the gospel. And I'm telling you, before he walked away, he had figured out how to send her a copy of his book, Our Search for Happiness. And I just stood back and watched how I thought, oh, that's how you do it. That's how you just engage anybody.
Yeah.
So I loved that he felt anybody was worthy of having a conversation and making a connection, male, female, across all party lines, across all ethnicities. I think he loved people and cared about them, wanted to tell them what he believed.
Yeah, he understood the dignity and the divinity of each individual, and whether it was the clerk behind the counter or the waitress at the restaurant or the flight attendant on the plane. I know his children would often roll their eyes and just say, "Oh, we're going to be late."
Here goes Dad.
He's talking to someone else, and each of those interactions were so personal. Because that was his ministry, was to get to the one. I remember from the trip from Rome when he came into the visitor center there at the Temple Gardens, and those majestic statues of the original 12 apostles, and how he spent 10 minutes standing in front of Andrew and just looking deeply there. And Andrew, of course, was the great introducer, brought Peter to come and see and introduced the centurion and the Romans and brought the boy with the 2 fish. He was this great introducer. And I thought, well, of course President Ballard would be there because he may be the best introducer the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints ever had.
There's no question that his missionary zeal is legendary, honestly. He, from the time he served a mission as a young man all the way through to his final hours, look what he stood up without being able to read a teleprompter because his eyesight was failing. In his last, what now we know as his last general conference address, and what did he do? He testified of the divine mission of the prophet Joseph Smith and of the restoration of the gospel and how deeply he felt about it and how he felt like it would change our lives. And I think one of the most tender moments, and you and I both saw it, one of the most tender moments I ever saw with him was sitting in the Smith home there in Sharon, and he was being interviewed. And he paused and he reflected on the busts that's set in his office of his progenitors, Joseph F. Smith and others, certainly Joseph and Hiram. And he said, sometimes this isn't a perfect quote, but almost, he said, sometimes I feel like I can hear them saying, "Get going, boy. Yeah. Go and tell someone what has happened, that the gospel's been restored." And his voice cracked and broke. He had to pause for a minute, but I thought that message is what has driven his entire life.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get to one other thing. I've always said that the small talk of great leaders is very instructive. You've been around President Ballard and other leaders enough to know about some of that small talk and some of the insight that you gain about their ministry, about what they care about, what they worry about. Give us some sense from President Ballard in terms of the small talk of a really great man.
Well, that's a great question, and I'm pretty sure that as I drive home tonight, I'll think of the perfect answer. But I would say that one of the characteristics that, for me, was indicative of him and indicative of his language was moving forward. He was always looking at the next step, and I wish I had $1 for every time he said to me, "Now, Sherry, you better measure twice before you cut on that one, but go figure that out and then get it done." So there was an element of caution, be wise, but move forward. And I guess if I were thinking about his small, quiet conversations away from the microphone, it almost always involved moving something, some initiative, some issue forward. Be careful about it, be cautious, use some wisdom, but move on it.
Yeah.
Get something done.
Yeah.
And that's probably how I would characterize those private conversations.
Yeah. Forward and onward, I think.
Forward and onward, always.
Was always it. And I always loved that he would quip and say that complexity is dangerous and simplicity is powerful.
Yeah.
And he'd take it one step further. He'd say Satan is the master of complexity and Jesus is the master of simplicity. And you saw him execute that in so many ways, where his ability to get to the essence of an issue, I think, was really extraordinary, to get to that simplicity.
Yeah, he could get to the bottom line. He would talk about, there are always challenges in a large organization with complexity. That's just a natural byproduct of a large organization. And oh my goodness, how many times did we hear him say some variation of, can we get to the bottom line? Can we simplify? Yeah. Let's simplify. But he had a gift for getting to the bottom line.
Yeah. Extraordinary. Sherry Dew, Executive Vice President, Chief Content Officer for Deseret Management Corporation, and great insight and perspective on the life and legacy of President M. Russell Ballard, an extraordinary individual, bigger than life, in very small and seemingly insignificant moments that made a difference for people inside the church, outside the church, and all around the world. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Boyd.
We'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Becky Bruce. KSL's top local story this hour. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says President M. Russell Ballard, the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, has died. Religious leaders around the state are remembering him. Here's KSL News Radio's Amy Kobabe.
Bishop Oscar A. Solis and the Catholic Diocese of Salt Lake City say President Ballard was a man of integrity and a true friend of their Catholic bishops. President Ballard had a longtime friendship with Reverend John C. Wester, now Archbishop of Santa Fe. The diocese says in a statement that they pray for President Ballard's family, that they find consolation in his love and faithful dedication to his calling.
President Ballard was 95 years old. Our top national story this hour from ABC News, an uphill battle for new House Speaker Mike Johnson as he pitches his plan to keep the government running past Friday. ABC's Jay O'Brien has more.
The first Republican who came out against it, Chip Roy. He says because the CR doesn't have other provisions in it and it just extends government funding, that's what clean is, that's why he's against it. And then since then, at least 6 Republicans have come out against it, including Scott Perry. Perry is the chair of the House Freedom Caucus. He says, quote, "I will not support a status quo that fails to acknowledge fiscal irresponsibilities."
Congress has until Friday to approve funding to avoid a government shutdown. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 74 points, the S&P 500 up just 1, the NASDAQ down 12. Coming up, a great way to get outside. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 1:32.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
At Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and to extend the legacy of care in our communities. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
With our roots in northern Utah, Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals have a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
Introducing Yes, heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Maximize your energy savings with a new energy-efficient heating and cooling system from Yes, and you could save up to $4,500 through possible tax credits and other discounts. Purchase a new system today, and Yes will buy back your old inefficient HVAC system. Visit theyesmancan.com to schedule your appointment. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Did you know gas goes bad in as little as 30 days? Bad gas can cause rough starts, poor performance, or no starts at all. Stable, America's #1 fuel stabilizer, ensures quick and easy starts after storage. Stable's proprietary formula keeps fuel fresh for 2 years, outperforming competitors. Whether it's your car, truck, boat, lawnmower, leaf blower, weed trimmer, ATV, motorcycle, or anything else with an engine, when you store, start with Stable.
Utah Symphony's Film and Concert Series delivers full-feature films on the big screen as the orchestra plays the soundtrack live. Tickets on sale now at utahsymphony.org.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
We're looking at a nice drive on the Valley freeways. 2 crashes called out on Redwood Road, the first at 100 North, another at 700 North. Witness the magic of the Nutcracker, opening December 8th with the timeless music of Tchaikovsky. Performed live by the Ballet West Orchestra. Tickets at balletwest.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We've probably already hit our high today. Tonight's low in the low 40s. Then tomorrow, a repeat sunny and 64. Right now, 64 degrees. I'm Becky Bruce, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, in the latest shakeup to the 2024 presidential race, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott announced on live television that he is suspending his campaign for the presidency. So we want to break down in this segment what led to the decision, what was Senator Scott's overarching message to the American people throughout the campaign, where did he go right, where did he go wrong, and what are voters and donors and those who are supporting Senator Scott going to do with their dollars and votes in the days ahead. So we want to break all of that down. It was really quite a stunner yesterday. In fact, many of the campaign staff from Senator Scott did not know he was going to make the announcement on live television yesterday. He made an appearance with Trey Gowdy on Fox News. And in the context of that, he made the formal announcement that his campaign would be suspended.
Traveling this country, meeting people has been one of the most fantastic experiences of my entire life. I love America more today than I did on May 22nd. But when I go back to Iowa, it will not be as a presidential candidate. I am suspending my campaign. I think the voters who are the most remarkable people on the planet have been really clear that they're telling me not now, Tim. I don't think they're saying, Trey, no, but I do think they're saying not now. And so I'm going to respect the voters, and I'm going to hold on and keep working really hard and look forward to another opportunity.
That was Tim Scott announcing that he was suspending his presidential campaign, that he would go back to Iowa, but he would not go back as a presidential candidate for 2024. So a significant announcement. He was one who was well-liked by everyone, regardless of where they fit on the spectrum. And so he did have a lot of popularity, and I don't know that I've met anyone who doesn't like Tim Scott as a person. When I was back in Washington, D.C. as a chief of staff in the Senate, he came to the Senate during that season, and instantly everyone felt that, wow, this is somebody we want. This is somebody we need, someone who's positive and optimistic. And so part of the interesting thing to me is the question moving forward. Is it an indication that you can't be a nice guy or a nice girl and win an election? Is it that things have become so sharp-elbowed, so caustic in terms of the kind of contention that we have on debate stages, that someone who is just positive, who has a vision for the country, can't garner enough attention to get the votes to actually get across the finish line? That's a discussion we're going to have over the next several days on this show, because to me, this is part what we reward, part of it is what we vote for, and part of this is just the natural consequence of you get what you pay for, and in the end, you end up paying for what you get when it comes to politics. And is it that we have become so crass in our politics? Is it that we have become so contentious in terms of looking at the other side as not just wrong, but evil? If every vote ends up being a lesser of two evils choice, we just can't let the other side win, so we need someone who's angry and mean and nasty, who can fight that kind of fight. If that's what we continue to choose as voters because of the fear we have of the other side winning, this is exactly what we will continue to get from both sides of the aisle. And more of the good people, the good guys and the good gals, will get out of public service. That's a dangerous place for our country to be in. So we're going to continue that conversation. Tim Scott centered his life and his political message on his faith. Just last week, during the third primary debate for the Republican side, Senator Scott made an impassioned call for faith in America to begin with the power of faith in America.
It is the loss of faith in this nation that is a part of the erosion that we're seeing every single day. It's restoring faith, restoring our Christian values that will help this nation once again become the city on the hill. Our founding documents speak to the importance of a faith foundation. You don't have to be a Christian for America to work for you, but America does not work without a faith-filled Judeo-Christian foundation. I would be the president that helps us restore faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in our future.
That was Tim Scott at the last debate stage that he will be on as a presidential candidate. For now, he did leave the door open to future opportunities and future runs. I think it's also important to go back to and reflect on some of the things that Senator Scott talked about on the campaign trail. One of the things that he spent a great deal of time about and discussing with voters was how his family's experience, his own life experience in America, is evidence of just how great this country actually is.
I love our country because I had a miserable beginning. I started off on the wrong foot. My parents got divorced when I was 7 years old. We moved into my grandparents' house. My grandfather was born in 1921 in a very segregated South Carolina. But he believed back then what too many doubt right now. He believed in having stubborn faith. Faith in God, faith in yourself, and faith in what America could be. My family chose patriotism, not pity. We chose that this is the land of opportunity, not the land of oppression.
Senator Scott spent a great deal of time talking about the fact that America is not a racist nation, that his own life experience showed that there was a path, that there were imperfections, that there were still major problems that need to be dealt with on a whole host of issues, from race and gender and identity to religious liberty and a host of other things, that there were crucial conversations that had to be had, but yet in America we continue to have them and we continue to make progress, that's the important thing. And that's where that patriotism, not grievance, not pity parties, that it's about the opportunities that are ahead of us, not whatever mistakes that were behind us. It's the ability of the country to come together. And so to me, it's an interesting challenge in terms of where our politics and media are at present and whether or not we, the people, the voters, will decide that we are ready for something different. If we just like sharp elbows, if we just like three-ring circus of debate stages, it was one of the things that I think was a real challenge for Senator Scott. He was never going to be a champion debater, especially in today's environment, because he completely rejected the idea of fake outrage, of anger for the sake of just stirring people up, of taking cheap shots at an opponent just because you could or because it was nice for a fundraising letter. He rejected that. And if someone like that can't capture the imagination of the American people, then we got other problems we got to get to. Because the moment we lose our ability to see that bigger picture, to see the view from higher up, that's the beginning of the end. And so we have to look at that. So there's a lot of interesting lessons there. I do think there were campaign mistakes from the Tim Scott campaign, probably a lot of that from inexperience in terms of staff, not necessarily the greatest of positioning on some of the core principles coming out of the gate in terms of message and how do you build momentum. I think a lot of people love the idea of Tim Scott. The campaign never quite seemed to get its sea legs in terms of being able to execute that on the ground. I think a little more time in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina would have been a good start for Senator Scott. And so, of course, now the question becomes, what comes next? Senator Scott, of course, will go back to the United States Senate and continue to do his work for the state of South Carolina. He will always be mentioned as a potential vice presidential running mate. and probably a host of other cabinet positions for whoever the Republican nominee ends up being. Also, a lot of chatter and clamor going on today about what happens to his supporters. He was rising in some of the polls, particularly in South Carolina and Iowa. There were also a lot of big money donors that were backing Senator Scott's effort and campaign. I know two of the major donors that were backing Senator Scott have already made their announcement and made their shift to Nikki Haley, a fellow South Carolinian, to Senator Scott. And Nikki Haley is launching $10 million new worth of ads in a campaign in Iowa and New Hampshire starting this week. And so a lot more to come, obviously, as it relates to the presidential race. The field is narrowing. The question will be, can anyone consolidate enough to compete against the former president? What will the voters? Again, I think there are paths for several of those still left in the race. It is not a foregone conclusion that the former president will be the nominee for the Republicans because, again, this is not based on national polls. It's based on delegates. And the delegates begin in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. And there are some interesting ways that might play out as we get into the new year. All right, we'll go ahead and step aside for a quick break. Much more Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
Hello, this is former Utah Governor Gary Herbert. Salt Lake City is fortunate to have a mayor who cares more about results than partisan politics, and that's why I've endorsed Mayor Erin Mendenhall for re-election. We don't always agree on policy, but she's always willing to listen and to collaborate. Erin is crisis-tested and has proven to be a strong leader for Salt Lake City. I hope you'll vote Erin Mendenhall for mayor and return your ballot today.
Learn more at erinmendenhall.com. Paid for by Erin Mendenhall for Salt Lake City.
Hey, BYU football fans, come see KSL's own Mitch Harper this Friday, November 17th at Macy's Grocery Store in Orem, 800 North State Street from 4 to 7 p.m. Fun, prizes, and chances to win tickets to the BYU-Oklahoma football game or a $50 Macy's gift card. You'll have multiple chances to win every hour. And during the broadcast, be sure to visit the Macy's Meat Department and pick up some of their easy meals. They're all cut, seasoned, and prepared for you. Just put them on the grill or in the oven and you have dinner in a snap. Those meals are perfect for dinner or any tailgate party. So celebrate the football season and join KSL's own Mitch Harper this Friday, November 17th at Macy's Tailgate in Orem from 4 to 7 p.m. Food, activities for the family, and enter to win tickets to the BYU-Oklahoma football game or a $50 Macy's gift card. Macy's. Happy shopping.
Higher taxes, soaring inflation, record low interest rates, and the skyrocketing cost of healthcare. The list goes on. Retiring successfully today is a lot more complicated than ever before. Learn how you could tackle the biggest challenges that you'll face in retirement today. Don't miss a special edition of Retirement Solutions Radio. It's this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL News Radio 1027.
I am thrilled to report that now about 6 weeks in, I have lost just under 30 pounds. That's almost 5 pounds a week on soda weight loss. I'm wearing clothes that I couldn't fit into before. There was times when I would look in the mirror and think, you know what? I remember what I used to look. I mean, I was like 130 pounds when I graduated high school, same height as I am now. So when I was double that weight, there was something just in the back of my mind that told me, I got to do something about it. And the great thing about Soda is you have customized meal plans, which means I don't have to think about everything. My biggest job is, okay, which of these 4 things am I going to eat in which order? And that's so helpful for somebody who's on the schedule that I have. And I have a nutritionist who helps me all along the way. I check in with her every week. She gives me encouragement. I had to get through Halloween this week without eating any candy, and I didn't. But this is part of my Soda weight loss journey. Go to sodaweightloss.com and see the 8,200 other people who are just like me and have found that Soda is amazing. That's SOTA, stands for state of the art.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
A lot
lot of schools talk about training the cybersecurity workforce of the future, but do they really deliver? My Computer Career has been supplying the IT workforce with thousands of skilled, certified pros for 15 years. Train with the experts in support, networking, or cybersecurity and start your career in months, not years. Upskill even faster. On campus or live online. Qualified students may get financial aid, including the GI Bill. My Computer Career. Accredited, acclaimed, effective. Take the free career evaluation at mycomputercareer.edu.
Cyprus Credit Union has got the ease and expertise for all your business needs. Ask Cyprus about payroll and HR resources, payment processing systems, lending needs, and more. Visit cypruscu.com.
Food brings people together. But for many families, figuring out where their next meal is coming from is a challenge. We can use your help by participating in Macy's annual Harvest of Hope food drive to benefit the Utah Food Bank. Now through November 30th, purchase a prepackaged bag of food at any Macy's store or donate online at Macys.com. Together, we can make a difference in our communities. From Macy's and KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, has died. Second, state troopers say a driver died after crashing into the wall on I-15 near American Fork this morning, then getting out of their car and stepping into traffic. And third, Congress continues to work on a plan to keep the government running. They're up against a Friday deadline. Right now, it's 64 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
The Supreme Court's term is well underway. The justices will be considering a variety of cases that have the potential to rein in federal bureaucracy. There are dozens of different departments within the executive branch and hundreds of agencies within those departments. The question for the court is, does the Constitution give these agencies authority to both regulate, decide the rules, carry out the punishment for millions of Americans? Really thrilled to have back on the program with us today William Duncan, Constitutional Law and Religious Freedom Fellow for the Sutherland Institute. And Bill, it's always great to have you on the program. And we know one of the big things on the docket in terms of impact is the Chevron deference. For our listeners, just give us a quick snapshot of that and how it relates to all of these regulatory things, these rules and regulations that get made, not necessarily by the people we elect to office.
Yeah, well, it's great to be on, Boyd, and hear your voice again. I think that probably most of us don't think about Chevron deference. That phrase doesn't bring to our minds initially, but the principle is pretty clear, and I think we probably have all experienced some version of it over time, and that is, these agencies, the role in the federal government, of course, is to enforce the laws. And over time, since the sort of mid-20th century, they've taken on the kind of an additional role, and that is to create rules for how laws that Congress enacts would be enforced. And you know, I have questions about that, but that's really not the major issue in this case. The question in this case is, what if Congress passes a law and it's not clear on a topic? Can the agencies just say, well, you know, we'll just fill some information in? And of course, the concern was expressed well in the way that you described it. That puts them in the position of not only enforcing the law, which is their role under the Constitution, but also of making, interpreting, in other words, doing all the things all the other branches of government are supposed to be doing. And that's where the concern has been raised.
Yeah, and it's always an interesting debate in terms of the kind of the role of the experts and the specialists. You took this on in a great piece at Deseret.com, talking about we do like specialists, and specialists are important, and we still want to make sure we've got that separation of powers thing working properly. And so how do we go about that from a mindset of when should we have the specialists within these agencies and departments versus the members of Congress who are a little more accountable to the people?
Yeah, again, your question is perfect because it raises I think the answer when we have to find some way to ensure that if rules that affect us, and by rules I mean that in a kind of generic sense, the laws that affect us, we need to be able to get them changed or to be able to express our opinion about them to someone who can actually make a difference. And that's Congress. So when those that we vote for are making the laws and they're clear about that, if there's some specific expertise that's needed, Congress can take that into consideration at the time of drafting and include details on what exactly would be the agencies would do. But when they say something, as they increasingly do, like the Department of Health and Human Services will have the authority under this law to determine what what employers have to pay without in insurance policies or things like that. That creates no accountability when HHS under that kind of rule enacts specific rules that govern employers, and those employers, they can say, well, gosh, Congress, why did you do this? Because Congress can say, well, we didn't. We gave it to HHS. They did it. Oh, sorry. There's no way for that normal appropriate feedback loop to occur to get rules changed when they turn out to be, to create problems that maybe weren't intended, or maybe were intended, but Congress just didn't want to take responsibility for them.
Yeah, and that's where I want to land is sometimes I think Congress likes this idea because then they don't have to take responsibility. We used to always use the example in D.C. that, Congress will pass the We Shall Have Clean Air Act and everybody cheers because everybody's for clean air. But then the bill says we hereby bequeath the power to decide what clean air is, what it isn't, what the rules are, what the penalties are, and to enforce the penalties to the agencies. And then that way, when a constituent says, "Hey, this is hurting my business or hurting my farm," then the member of Congress can shrug and say, "Well, I just voted for clean air. If you have a problem, go talk to the people down at the agency who aren't electable and aren't accountable."
Right. That's exactly right. The case that the Supreme Court is hearing, or there's really, like you said, a couple of cases they're hearing, involve an interesting version of this because Congress passed a law that gave the agencies some power to monitor, or that's probably not the best word since we use that for a different meaning now, but to kind of supervise enforcement of certain fishing laws. And the way that the agency has interpreted that is that if you have a fishing crew that's going out in the ocean, you have to include a federal kind of inspector to go along on the trip, which is, asking a lot. But even beyond that, now they have to pay for the time of the inspector as they're on the trip. And so, of course, you can imagine that a fishing business, they're operating like most people and kind of narrow margins, and they don't necessarily want to do that. And if you go to your local representative and say, "How could you do this to me?" They might say, "Oh, well, we didn't mean for that. Let's make a change." But that can't happen in this case because Congress is not the ones making that change.
Yeah, it's such an important thing. We're going to be watching this very closely. And, Bill, we look forward to having you back as we navigate this, watch what the Supreme Court does with this. It's crucial stuff. It really gets close to home much faster than we think. I know no one did wake up this morning, as you pointed out, Bill. No one woke up thinking about the Chevron deference this morning, but it is going to impact all of our lives today. Bill Duncan, Constitutional Law and Religious Freedom Fellow at the Southern Institute, one of the smartest guys I know. Bill, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Boyd.
Bill has a great piece at Deseret.com talking about this thing. If you want to get some insight on that, just go to Deseret.com. Bill's got a great piece called Why Chevron Deference Raises Serious Concerns About the Separation of Powers. And that is the real thing that is at stake in several of these cases that will be before the Supreme Court during this term. As Bill pointed out, suddenly you've got these agencies making the rules, figuring out the enforcement, deciding what the penalties are, things that are really far removed from members of Congress and people who are accountable directly to the people. And it's really hard to get a hold of somebody in a cubicle somewhere who's not accountable to you because they weren't elected by you. And we have so much. We have pages and tens of thousands of pages of new regulations every year in this country. Only a few hundred pages of actual law that gets passed by both houses and signed by a president. It's the regulatory things that are creating a lot of the challenges and difficulties. And Bill Duncan just pointed out why that's such an issue, why we need to be aware of it. All right, that wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to have an important conversation with Phelan Kind as President Biden gets ready to meet with President Xi. That's going to be a serious meeting. We want to be in the room where it happens. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Becky Bruce. KSL's top story this hour. Utah's political leaders are remembering President M. Russell Ballard, the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Utah Governor Spencer Cox posted on X that President Ballard, quote, spent a lifetime of service trying to make the world a better place. Utah Senate President Stuart Adams says one other thing stuck out to him in his interactions with him.
He always made me feel as if I was special, and he and those around him were special.
Utah Senator Mike Lee on X also spoke about President Ballard's life of, quote, devoted service. Senator Mitt Romney also saying, quote, to him we owe decades of our extraordinary journey through life.
That's KSL News Radio's Adam Small. President Ballard died overnight. He was 95. The American Fork Police Department is investigating what looks like a small pipe bomb explosion at a construction site. Police believe it went off sometime over the weekend. They say nobody was hurt. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Supreme Court's adopted a formal ethics code for the first time ever. It follows demands for something to be done after reports of luxury travel by justices and influence campaigns aimed at the court. Your money at this moment. The Dow finishes the day up about 55 points. The S&P 500 down 3. The NASDAQ down 30. Coming up, warm and sunny. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 2:01.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. Introducing 24/7 LifeGuard protection, only from SimpliSafe Home Security. Now, monitoring agents can see and speak to intruders through our new indoor camera to help stop crime in real time and for fast police response. Get 20% off any new system with Fast Protect monitoring at simplisafe.com/radio. Advanced home security, 24/7 professional monitoring for less than $1 a day. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Everybody knows that your credit history can have a huge impact on your life, Amanda, especially when you're just starting out as an adult.
That's why Utah Community Credit Union, UCCU's new Credit Builder loan is such a great idea. It's a way to build or to rebuild your credit.
All right, so let's talk about how it works. With Credit Builder, UCCU will open an account in your name and then provide that account with a fixed amount of funds along with a small automatic monthly payment. And as your automatic payments are made over time, of course, your credit builds, proving you're a responsible borrower and raising your credit score.
And that credit score is just so important because it determines the interest rates you'll get, higher credit limits, better loan terms because of your credit score.
And by the way, if you have kids in high school, open a Credit Builder loan in their name, and that way they're going to graduate from high school with a good credit score of their own.
It's called the Credit Builder loan from Utah Community Credit Union, UCCU.
Just call or text UCCU or stop by any branch and start building your credit today.
UCCU, you're going to love where you bank.
Tonight at 10, are protective orders working?
Armed users are incredibly dangerous.
Protective orders are designed to keep guns out of the hands of abusers.
I am a mother that is trying to raise my children in a state where they should feel protected.
A KSL investigation reveals gaps in how those protections are being carried out. Domestic violence and firearms, tonight on KSL 5 News at 10.
getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have emergency crews responding to a crash in Weber County westbound Riverdale Road at 1050 West. It's blocking a center lane of traffic. Also a crash in Salt Lake County, 4800 West, 700 South. For 2 days only, the Zero Res food drive is getting even better. Schedule your Zero Res cleaning today and pay just $25 per room when you donate to the food drive. Offer ends Tuesday. Call Zero Res for full details. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We've probably already hit our high today. Tonight's low in the low 40s. Then tomorrow, sunny and 64. Right now, partly cloudy, 64 degrees. I'm Becky Bruce, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
On Wednesday, a high-stakes meeting will be the headline as President Joe Biden and the president of China, Xi, get together in San Francisco. For the first time they've met since back at the G20 back in 2022. So we want to go beyond the headlines, beyond just what the goals of the meeting are, what the theatrics and the camera shots look like. But what will the actual principle and policy discussion be? So let's get beyond the headlines. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, this is a meeting that's been delayed, and now it's finally going to happen in San Francisco on Wednesday. The two world leaders will get together. I'm sure they will talk about points of agreement, a lot of points of disagreement. Will this be the beginning of a thaw in the relationship? Is it just a prelude to a deeper deep freeze? We want to get to the bottom of all of that, and we always turn to Phelim Kine, D.C.-based China correspondent for Politico. And Phelim, this is clearly a meeting that President Biden has wanted to have for some time. I think it's clearly in the interest of China for President Xi to be there as well. Give us first just kind of the behind the scenes. There's always a delicate diplomatic dance going on and a big flurry of diplomatic activity this week. Give us the sense behind the scenes rolling into Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, this has been in the works for months. I guess we could say this is the climax of that summer of diplomacy, of diplomatic outreach that the Biden administration launched toward China, with 3 cabinet secretaries in a row and climate envoy John Kerry going to China to try to pave the way or lay the foundation for what they hope to be a reasonably productive meeting. But I think that it's important to realize that this relationship remains at its lowest point in half a century, and that to a large extent what both sides are trying to do is try to slow down or stem the slide in that relationship toward potential kinetic military conflict somewhere in the Indo-Pacific or across the Taiwan Strait. So to a certain extent, expectations are low, but there are high hopes that at the very least the two sides will talk. And remember, we're heading into this is presidential election season. This is the last chance for President Biden to have a face-to-face, one-on-one meeting with Xi Jinping for maybe until the end of 2024.
Yeah.
So it's really important that the two sides lay out what their positions are and try to reach some understanding of what they want, what they don't want, and try to ensure that whatever happens over the next 12 months, they can keep the relationship relatively stable.
Yeah, stable, I think, is the word that I think everyone would call that a big win if we can stabilize some of that. And yeah, you did a brilliant job of breaking this all down at Politico.com today. And so let's dig into and unpack some of those. Obviously, what's going on with Iran is a big component there. You mentioned Taiwan and the Taiwan Straits. There's also some economic components there in terms of where China is and some of their struggles. And then, of course, there's the usual things on the table, including human rights. Give us kind of a sense of priority, and what do those conversations start to look like?
Yeah, so on the Chinese side, for Xi Jinping, the highest priority is connecting with foreign businesses, particularly the U.S. corporate community. And the Wall Street Journal had a really good story on the weekend about how Xi was trying to arrange this blue ribbon, high-level VIP dinner with seats going from $2,000 to $40,000 each to be close to the paramount leader of China to talk about his vision of U.S.-China corporate cooperation. So that's what he wants. He's dealing with a sputtering economy, and he needs U.S. help in order to stabilize it. And for Joe Biden, on his short list is he finally wants to kind of pull Xi Jinping into agreeing to do something about that flow of precursor chemicals that come from China, go to Mexico, get processed by the cartels into fentanyl, and kill tens of thousands of Americans every year. So he's looking for that type of deliverable. And also really key is Joe Biden wants to reestablish high-level military-to-military contact and dialogues. You'll remember that that's something that the Chinese side suspended back in August 2022 as a reprisal for the Pelosi visit to Taiwan. And that's a dangerous thing to not have connected at a time when you have an ongoing series of dangerous and provocative interventions and in the Indo-Pacific, in the Taiwan Strait, between Chinese jet fighters and U.S. vessels and aircraft.
Yeah, and I think I'm so glad you raised that because I know a lot of us have kind of let that fall under the horizon, the military to military ties, and as you pointed out, it was this counter action by the Chinese after then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan in 2022. And so that's happened in 2022. It's kind of fallen underneath the radar, but is so critical, especially with what's going on there. And then clearly what's happening in the Middle East, as well as what's still going on in Ukraine and Russia's involvement in all of that. Give us a sense of how do all those dots get connected in San Francisco on Wednesday?
Yeah, well, Biden will be looking for reassurance from Xi Jinping that China will not materially assist Putin's war on Ukraine. And that's something that, to a large extent, the Chinese have not done. So they have not shipped, they've not been doing large weapons shipments or ammunition shipments to Russia. They've honored that. They're concerned that the U.S. will indeed follow through in its threat and unleash really punishing economic sanctions on China if it does so. And the other piece to this, of course, is the Israel-Hamas war. Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, in Lebanon, which support Hamas. China has influence with Iran. Iran has influence on Hezbollah. So Biden is going to be looking for reassurance from Xi that China is using its leverage on Iran to ensure that the Middle East, that what's happening in the Middle East right now, is Israel and Hamas, doesn't spill over, doesn't become a wider conflict. So, it's a big and ambitious agenda, and it's a lot to cram into 4 or 5 hours on a Wednesday afternoon.
What else are you going to do on a Wednesday in San Francisco? I'm sure they'll bring some seafood in as part of that conversation. I want to round things out, Phelim, as you look at being there at the table. You mentioned this in your piece as well. Will this be China just looking for some practical, tactical, short-term kinds of things, or are they really going to try to improve the longer-standing relationship with the U.S.? And give us a sense of that, and then anything else that you might be, if you were the fly on the wall in the room where it happens, what would you be hoping to see there?
Yeah, I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but honestly, the structural pathologies in the U.S.-China relationship are so deep that I don't think we can hope for this one meeting to sort of turn those around. I think what we can look to is the two leaders to reach some kind of modus vivendi, some sort of understanding that they don't want this to get worse, that they don't want to have conflict, accidental or otherwise, spill over or erupt in the Indo-Pacific or in the Taiwan Strait. And so I think it's a holding action. And in the meantime, Xi wants to have U.S. investment to help his economy start to recover. And for me, I would love to know, my fly on the wall, I want to know who's paying the $40,000 per seat to sit with Xi Jinping. I think that would be a very telling statement about who in corporate America is still all in on Xi Jinping's China.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. As always, we always look forward to talking with Phelim Kine, D.C.-based China correspondent for Politico, best in the business. And Phelim, this is one of those that the greatest advance may just be the stability of the status quo. And always appreciate your perspective. We look forward to having you back after Wednesday to see actually what happened and who paid for that seat next to President Xi. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
All right, and that's Phelim Kine from Politico. He is so good at following all the nuance and all the details as it relates to China and U.S.-China policy. And we're going to watch that very closely. Coming up on Wednesday, a historic visit with President Biden and President Xi of China in San Francisco. As Phelim pointed out, there will be a dinner with sort of the U.S. business crowd, anywhere between 2,000 and 40,000 to sit in the vicinity of the Chinese leader. That will be fascinating. And I think Phelim got it right. I don't expect to see great advances, but if we could solidify and get some stability to the status quo, that might not be a bad thing for everybody. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. KSL is more than a news station. It's a meeting place.
What an extraordinary and forgiving nature.
I love stories like that.
It's where neighbors and coworkers engage with the community, where anyone can get the very latest news from Midvale to the Middle East.
Police have located the vehicle.
Mitt Romney says he's not considering another run for president.
They've opened up that right lane of travel.
This week, join the anchors and hosts Utah has relied on for generations. We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
An orthopedic surgeon makes understanding pain painless.
It's the biggest frustration that patients have.
This is Dr. Pamela Mehta talking about aches with unexpected origins.
I see patients with pain in their knees, their hips, their back. Oftentimes, the pain is actually coming from their feet.
Bet they aren't expecting to hear that.
Those patients are super surprised. They can't believe that the pain in their knee isn't coming from actually inside the knee. But if you think about it, the feet are the base to your whole body.
That's why she suggests personally fit arch supports. Emphasis on the personal fit.
If you get something basing it just on your shoe size, it isn't going to fit you properly.
And if it doesn't fit well, it probably won't work well.
Go get arch supports fitted to you. It's as easy as going into a Good Feet store.
Try Good Feet for yourself with a free fitting. Learn more at goodfeet.com.
Stop by the Good Feet store in Farmington, Riverton, or Sandy for a free fitting. Call 1-800-NEW-FEET or visit mygoodfeet.com.
Hey guys, Alex Curie here for Alpine Home Medical. You've heard us talking for years about Alpine Home Medical and the great service that they provide, bringing wellness home. That's what they do. They can help you with any medical supply that you have need of right in your home. They have brick and mortar stores. Yes, in fact, they have a brand new location in Tooele, and all of it can be intimidating when it comes to your medical supply needs. But don't let it be, because Alpine Home Medical has so many experts who can walk you through all this. Let's say you want to get a new CPAP machine. Let's say that you want to get part of their CPAP resupply program. They can do all of it. They can help you professionally, walk you through all of the steps to make sure that that CPAP machine is up and running perfectly so that you can be on your way. It doesn't just leave there. It's not about just selling the product at Alpine Home Medical. It's about making sure that you get the service that you need. Give them a call today. Go to alpinehomemedical.com to find out more information about how Alpine can help you in your home or at any of their local stores anywhere across the Wasatch Front, like I said, including at their brand new location in Tooele. It's alpinehomemedical.com, alpinehomemedical.com.
The Zero Res Food Drive is on. All this month, schedule a cleaning with Zero Res Carpet Cleaning, make a donation at the time of service, and you'll pay just $25 per room. Each year, Zero Res collects between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds of food during the food drive. And with your help this year, they could do even more. Zero Res is the only no-residue carpet cleaner in the area. With their ZR water, there's no soaps, no shampoos, and no residue left behind. So your carpets stay cleaner longer. Plus, with a no residue cleaning, you don't have to worry about any nasty chemicals left behind either. Zero Res is safe for people, pets, and the planet. Schedule your cleaning today. The $25 sale ends Tuesday. You don't have to clean today, but you do have to get on the schedule. $25 per room for a Zero Res carpet cleaning when you clean in November and participate in the Zero Res Food Drive. But this rate is only good if you schedule before the end of the day on Tuesday. For more info, restrictions, and to schedule, visit ZeroRes.com.
Hello, car
car donation hotline.
Hi, I'd like to donate a car to the Utah Kidney Foundation. Are you in Utah?
Awesome. Let's get some info and we'll send you a tow truck.
But I want my car donation to benefit my neighbor in Farmington who needs a transplant. Are you in Utah?
That's a gnaw. I'm in SoCal, but you're still donating to charity.
What charity?
Does it matter?
Yes, I want my donation to stay in Utah.
Righteous dude. You need to call Tow Cars in Utah. Locals only, am I right?
Oh, yeah. I remember tow cars with a K like kidney. It's on a billboard somewhere. TOWKARS.org. That's it. Towcars.org.
If you'd like your vehicle donation to help Utah kidney patients in the Beehive State, please use the web address on their billboard, towcars.org, to donate your old car or truck. That's TOWK like kidney, ARS. Towcars.org.
Transform your outdated kitchen with half-price granite. Granite quartz, marble, and quartzite starting at $25 per square foot installed. Visit halfpricegranite.com. Affordable luxury.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and we are picking up our conversation on the life and legacy of President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He passed away Sunday at the age of 95, and we talked earlier in the program about his ability to see far ahead and around corners, his unique ministry as someone who was an introducer. He loved to introduce people to the gospel of Jesus Christ wherever he was, however he could. He did that in many ways. We talked earlier about his ability to focus people's attention on the proper name of the Church of Jesus Christ and his role there, along with President Russell M. Nelson, as that rolled out just a few years ago in terms of an increased emphasis on the name of the church. Everything pointing towards the Savior, Jesus Christ. And we are just thrilled to have joining us in studio today our friend Carol Makita from KSL TV. And Carol, I want to get into another aspect that is maybe a little lesser known to a lot of our listeners in terms of something that President that President Ballard could see ahead and around the corner that was going to be really important in connecting people in church buildings. Tell us about it.
It is absolutely one of his most beautiful legacies, I think, Boyd. Let's put it that way. This is a quote from then Elder Ballard in 1996. "Inspired art speaks in the language of eternity, teaching things to the heart that the eyes and ears can never understand. God's purpose for the artist is to inspire, to give us visions of ourselves that we might not otherwise see, to make us better than we should have been." So going back to during the pandemic in May of 2020, the first presidency asked all church leaders and physical facilities managers to place artwork of Jesus Christ in foyers and main entrances of the faith's buildings throughout the world so that Latter-day Saints and visitors will immediately recognize the sacred image of the Savior. Well, whose idea was that? It was President Ballard's. I asked him about it, and here's what he said. "I came to realize that we were not doing that one Sunday when I went to 3 different chapels."
Sounds like President Ballard.
Of course he did. And in the foyers, he was not there. He was down the hall. It dawned on me, this is his church, and the first thing people ought to see when they walk into the foyer of the Church of Jesus Christ ought to be some wonderful work of art that depicts his life and his ministry. So it's a wonderful legacy, even though he's basically opening the door for Latter-day Saint artists to fill the foyers and entryways of all buildings throughout the world. But it was his inspiration.
Yeah, and such a big, he loved big. He just loved to do big. We were talking earlier, he's the guy that's going to charge up the mountain with the flag and plant it. And so when you think about that, you think, oh, well, art in churches, okay, that's an important thing. But they start thinking about 33,000 units of the church all around the world in all kinds of settings and circumstances. But I think that idea, that vision he had, again, going all the way back to 1996, I mean, you want to talk about visionary, of how important that was. He was so committed to making sure that when anyone of any faith walked into a church building, that they would widen the welcome, that everyone would immediately know whose building it was, and what these people were about.
He was very interested in interfaith relationships. And he had obviously then been invited into other Christian churches and other denominations. And so seeing what was sacred to them inspired him to say, this is sacred to us.
The interfaith work that President Ballard did, I think, was so powerful because he allowed himself to have that holy envy for other faiths and other faith traditions, and especially their artwork and what it was that drew them closer to Jesus Christ. What was it that gave them a spiritual experience? And he clearly had a vision for what that should look like in church buildings, in temples, and so on.
I think so. And those partnerships, he valued a great deal. When I think about how long ago he started to bond with the Catholic Church pertaining to humanitarian work around the world, and then it was 2019 when he accompanied President Nelson to the Vatican. There was that moment, like you say, he was always thinking big.
Yeah, always big and always a couple steps ahead with a very quick pace in all of that. As you've had the opportunity to interview and be with President Ballard, I remember you interviewing President Ballard up at This Is the Place Monument a few years ago. And that was actually during the pandemic because we did it outside.
That's right.
And even there was a connection to art and to history. Those were really intricate things in his witness and his testimony to connect the art with that pioneer legacy.
I think it's no surprise to either one of us that his last conference address, he would, first of all, be so open and honest, as he always was when you said, "How are you?" He would say, "Well, my eyes aren't so good, my balance isn't so good," and he'd laugh about it.
Yeah.
And then he would become very serious about the work that still needed to be done, and he would go anywhere to do it. But he was insistent on every Latter-day Saint remembering church history. And certainly his connection was deeper than most, but he cherished it. And he would often say, "But I'm only an ordinary guy." Now, I don't think any of us who ever met him ever thought of him that way, but he did. And he was constantly reminded of how wonderful the experiences were. And he would not only be part of it, but he would talk about the wonder of it. And I loved that about President Ballard.
Yeah, that wonder and awe. And we saw that up at This Is the Place Monument. We saw it in Sharon, Vermont. We saw it at the Vatican. We've seen it in Nauvoo and other places. That it was awe-inspiring. It was a wonder to him that we all get to be part of something so big and so amazing that isn't just a big organization that's global, but is about the impacting individuals and families and communities.
Making life better for every single person. And he would say, just do it for one person. If you just do it for one person, then that's the true saint.
Yeah. And he often did that and would tell people, if you're struggling with something, let me know, and I'll write a letter, or I'll make a call, or I'll do something.
That's right.
And he also had that, as you were talking there, Carol, it just made me think, he had that courageous vulnerability that we often lack in leaders around the world of all kinds today, that everyone's trying to be perfect. But he talked very vulnerably about the loss of his wife. He talked about his health and so on. That's a really unique gift for a world religious leader.
It is, and I laughingly remember, I don't know, I must have admitted some mistake that I made to him one time, and he said, "Oh, listen, I talked my father into the Etzel," and he said, "That was a phenomenal mistake," and he said, "So just put it into perspective." He was very open. He was ready to tell you that he was, I might be sitting in this church building as a leader, but I am not some kind of perfect person. I have made my share of mistakes, and that he could laugh at himself and look back and say, moving on.
Yeah, I think he was so good at showing the life of an apostle. Sometimes we think of those apostles, whether it's those from the New Testament or those in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as stained glass, immortal kind of folks. But he showed that really the way the New Testament presents them is as flawed, as weak, as having challenges. Life is messy, family is messy, and yet there's a wonder in all of it that can touch individual lives.
The idea that we must all say, how did I get here? And with all the blessings of my life is what he wanted us each to ask ourselves.
Yeah, and ultimately his final witness was just that.
Exactly.
For all of us.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's a tough day for both of us. We really loved this man. We enjoyed his company, did we not? I mean, it was always such a pleasant, he'd open with, well, where have you been and how have you been? And I was, he wanted to know. He was curious, and he was always loving, and it was always take care of yourself.
Yeah, there was. He was really the grandfather to the church. I think one of his fellow apostles described him as the grandpa for the church. And but in so many ways, he was a unique witness of Jesus Christ, forever modeling those two great commandments, that we love God and we love our neighbor as ourselves. And for President Ballard, everybody was a neighbor. Everybody became a friend.
I agree.
Carol Makita, thank you so much for taking time with us today. An extraordinary day, an extraordinary man in the life of President M. Russell Ballard. Passed away on Sunday. An extraordinary legacy, a link to the past, to the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but a force and an influence around the world of what it means to be a follower and a disciple of Jesus Christ through art, through interfaith, and through just doing good and making a difference. We'll be right back.
2:31 at KSL News Radio. I'm Claire Scott. KSL's top local story this hour. Utah's politicians are reacting to the death of President M. Russell Ballard, the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. State Senate President Stuart Adams says he saw firsthand how much President Ballard served others.
And it seemed like no matter where I went, whether it was to try to help people with cancer or medical issues, or mental health issues, he was always there supporting, trying to, at groundbreakings, so involved in reaching out to try to help others.
Governor Spencer Cox and Senator Mike Lee also spoke about the President Ballard's life of service. Senator Mitt Romney called President Ballard a great leader, a spiritual giant, and a dear friend. Ogden police are now identifying the man they arrested after a weekend shooting as a 19-year-old. Ricardo Carabello was booked into the Weber County Jail on suspicion of murder. He's accused of shooting two people, one of which died. The other is in stable condition after going to the hospital. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden signed an order today establishing the first ever White House initiative on women's health research.
Signing this, I'm setting up this group that within 45 days, all the government agencies that have anything to do with health have to report on exactly what they're doing now with regard to women's health and the suggestions they may have.
The group is tasked with finding ways to make women's health research better and spur innovation. Your money at this moment, the market has closed for the day. The Dow is up 54 points to 34,337. Coming up, a gorgeous day out there at KSL Weather's next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Every year I tell myself, Doug, you can't procrastinate. It's time to get into Burt Brothers. Make sure that the vehicle I drive, the vehicles that Dee drives, and our family vehicles are all ready for winter. And Burt Brothers, boy, as these temperatures start to drop, soon the snowflakes are going to fall, the roads are going to be slick. You need peace of mind on Utah's snowy roads. Winter tires from Burt Brothers, they make all the difference. You can drive with confidence. Specialized tires designed to grip the road in the harshest conditions. They give you better traction, handling, shorter braking distances, and the gift of safety for you and your loved ones. And right now, save up to $130 back on 4 Bridgestone Blizzak tires through December 16th. That's only at Burt Brothers with complete auto care. They can take care of it all. Make sure you're not off on the side of the road with a little help from your friends at Burt Brothers. And there's a location for Burt Brothers near you.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Make today the beginning of your fresh start with the IRS. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief now for your free confidential consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
This is Todd Frayton's heart. He's begun his wellness journey. This is its sound on a treadmill, at a slight incline, on a stroll through the forest. And this is the heart of Maria Sanchez, his physician. What's it doing here? A lot, actually, because when we partner with you, we don't just offer a strategic plan and status updates. We put our hearts into it, beat for beat. We call it the power of we, Intermountain Health.
Fed Up Kitchen is Utah's premier healthy meal prep service. Save time, money, and get results with their delicious, gluten-free, macro-friendly meals. Eat better, feel better, live better with Fed Up Kitchen. FedUpKitchen.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky.
Freeway traffic rolling along and looking good, but we do have a new accident. No delays, so we're still seeing good speeds. This crash is in the Gore area between the main flow and the ramp, southbound I-215's West Belt at 2100 North. Witness the magic of the Nutcracker, opening December 8th with the timeless music of Tchaikovsky, performed live by the Ballet West Orchestra. Tickets at balletwest.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We've probably hit our high today. Tonight's low is in the low 40s, then tomorrow sunny and 64. Right now it's 64 and mostly cloudy. I'm Claire Scott, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As we continue to watch things unfold in the Middle East, serious conversations need to be had. And we need to understand things just a little different way. We have to get past the headlines on so much of this. And as we look at compassion, which we should have for everyone, being able to call out evil, which we should be able to do whenever we see it, wherever we see it, however we see it. But we have to get to that different kind of conversation. Now, tomorrow, American Jews and many others are planning a historic march in Washington, D.C. to combat anti-Semitism in the wake of Israel's war with Hamas. This comes as 180,000 people marched peacefully across France to protest against rising anti-Semitism there over the weekend. Yesterday, I spoke with Rabbi Brad Hirschfield from New York on Sunday edition for KSL 5 TV. We talked about anti-Semitism and what we're seeing across the country on college campuses in particular and in other places. And we also talked about tomorrow's March for Israel, what that should look like, and what we should actually interpret as the meaning and the message of what it's really all about.
Well, I want to be clear. There is going to be a national rally, and I'm hoping that north of 100,000 people will show up. It begins at 1 p.m. in the nation's capital. It is a rally for Israel, and I want to be clear. It is not for a particular politics of Israel. It is for the existence of the state of Israel, which is what this battle going on in Gaza is about. It is a rally for the return of the 240-plus hostages that were taken on October the 7th. It's hard for me to believe that anyone, any kind of moral conscience, regardless of politics, would not want to show up to demand the return of those hostages. And in fact, I would actually ask anyone who thinks that's an open question to help me understand how that could be an open question. And the last piece, and you mentioned it, Boyd, is that it is a rally against anti-Semitism, because we have seen increasingly that people's outrage, to the extent that they have it at Israel, has actually turned into a set of acts against Jews, whoever they are, regardless of what they believe, independent of politics. And I want to be clear, and this is a little bit controversial, I do not believe that all criticism of Israel is an anti-Semitic position. I think there's a lot of room for a lot of latitude about how different people relate to Israel and its politics. A lot. More than makes some people in my own community comfortable. But the fact of the matter is, that can never be an excuse for thinking it's okay to murder people because they are Jewish. And anything less than a willingness to take on the current government of Gaza, Hamas, whose stated goal is the mass murder of Jews, is inherently anti-Semitic. And there is no way to help people feel good about that. The only thing to do in the face of that kind of hatred is to stand up against it. So the rally on Monday is independent of politics. It is, in fact, a rally against hate and against kidnapping. And I really do believe the time will come when people will look back and ask, how could they ever have stood on the other side of that issue?
Such great perspective from Rabbi Brad Hirschfield from New York, part of the National Jewish Learning and Leadership Foundation. And such great perspective there. I love the fact that he distinguished that this march tomorrow will be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. here in Utah, in our nation's capital. Again, the march is for Israel, but he was very clear to point out this is not for a particular politics within Israel. It's not for the Benjamin Netanyahu administration or anything like unto it. He said it's for the existence of the state of Israel, and that it is also for the 240-plus hostages that are currently being held by a terrorist organization called Hamas. And everyone should be able to get around those issues. That's pretty straightforward. Now, as I continue my conversation with Rabbi Hirschfield, again, this was on Sunday edition yesterday for KSL5 TV, I asked him about the relationship between the conflict in Israel and the feelings that so many are having of anger, the feelings of anti-Semitism rising in our own community. And I just love this. Rabbi Hirschfield spoke about an interaction he had with a protester who had been tearing down posters that had images, pictures of the hostages. So think about that. Rabbi Hirschfield is interacting with a protester, a pro-Hamas protester, who is tearing down posters of the 240 hostages, many of them children, women, and he had a conversation with this protester. Take a listen to this.
It's interesting how these events that happen thousands of miles away surface things about our own feelings, and they apply across the board. They have to do with people not going down the rabbit hole of self-justifying polarizations so they can feel good about themselves, which is, I think, exactly what goes on. There's the example of people, and it's still going on, where people are tearing down posters in public of the kidnapped victims. I happened to be in a situation with someone who was doing it. And yes, I felt a certain kind of rage. I said, no, I'm going to do this differently. And I said, you know what? I'm sure we agree about nothing. Can you explain to me why you're tearing down that poster? And they started to scream at me about Israel. I said, okay, I get that. We don't agree. That's fine. I'm asking you again. You're tearing down the poster of an 8-year-old little girl who was kidnapped out of her home by armed terrorists. Why are you tearing that down? And she got very quiet, the woman who was tearing down the poster. And I realized something with perfect clarity, and this comes back to a lot of the fights we have in this country about a whole bunch of things. We don't take the positions we take because of the thing we claim we take it for. She was tearing down those posters because looking at the faces of the kidnap victims reminded her of the failed policies of the people she had previously supported and still supported.
Wow.
And it was a reminder that she had supported the wrong people in the wrong way, and this is what it wrought. And those faces of the kidnapped were a reminder to her of the mistake she made. And so I think what happens is we get into these places and we have these knee-jerk reactions on all bunches of issues, right, left, center. And the example I give is when you go to the doctor and they tap your knee, and your knee jerks, right? It reflexes out. That reaction isn't because of the doctor or because of their hammer. It's because of your knee. So the first thing I would suggest to anyone in a moment of polarization, before you assess how it's the other person, ask yourself what buttons it's pushing in you and why.
In a moment of polarization, the question is not about the awful, evil other person who's causing you to be angry or frustrated or fearful. The first question is, what button is it pushing internally about you? What is it that you aren't confident about? What is it that you're insecure about? I found it fascinating that Rabbi Hirschfield, talking to this woman who was tearing down posters with the images, the faces of those who were taken out of their homes, taken from a concert by armed terrorists, tearing those down. Why? Because she realized, looking into those faces, she realized she was on the wrong side. She had supported the wrong group, and that struck to her core. And so, of course, she couldn't face that. But how often do we do that? I love that Rabbi Hirschfield brings this back to us and to our own communities. And how often do we other people because we're afraid that if they have a space in our community, maybe we don't. Or if they have a space in our friend group, or in our work group, or in our community group, then maybe there's not space for us. And that functioning from a position of weakness, that functioning from a position of less than, that functioning from a position of fear always leads to othering and polarization. It's why when a new kid comes into a 5th grade class, and maybe they're a really cool new kid, that inevitably someone is going to feel insecure and start poking at the new kid, the new student, or making fun of them or othering them in some way, not because they're new, but because they're afraid that they might lose their space. It's often our own insecurities that lead to a lot of the polarization that we deal with, and a lot of the arguments and fights and heated rhetoric that gets spewed across this country and across our communities every day is grounded and centered in our own insecurities. And we have to get back and past that if we're going to get to the real conversations. We're going to cover tomorrow, of course, this march in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. to combat anti-Semitism. We'll have that conversation as we get into the program tomorrow. For now, we'll step aside for one last break. We'll come back with some final thoughts on a Monday here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Use the most convenient KSL live stream on the KSL News Radio app. Domestic terrorism.
Local county clerks, be cautious.
Podcast Dave and Debbie and Boyd Matheson.
Primary care through Amazon.
It feels too good to be true.
Support for third-party candidates almost an all-time high.
Get alerts for Utah news, written with balance and fairness.
I like when I'm given information in a way that makes me think more. I usually go to the KSL app.
On your phone and around the house, use the app for KSL News Radio.
People can tell you that you're special. That's pretty easy. A lot of organizations do that, but few actually back it up with words, those words with actual action. That's what Hercules Credit Union is all about. And right now, they're going to actually do that. They're going to treat you extra special with a limited offer. You can open a new checking account today at Hercules Credit Union, and they're going to upgrade you to a premier checking account status, free of any monthly fees. You get all kinds of benefits that go with that. You get ultimate identity theft protection, travel benefits, all kinds of perks, cellular care coverage, and much, much more. So again, all you have to do is sign up and open up a new checking account. Hercules Credit Union will upgrade you to a premier checking account. No fees there. You can find their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, or Salt Lake City. And as always, with our friends at Hercules Credit Union, they'll treat you special online as well. Check them out online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
Bill Riley here with University of Utah head football coach Kyle Whittingham. Now tell me, Coach Witt, what's your philosophy on a winning team?
I believe the key to winning is a strong offensive line. When the linemen do their job, nothing gets through to the quarterback, so he can do his job.
Well, what happens if the linemen don't do their job?
Ouch. You know, Bill, I recently learned that kidneys work like linemen for your body. When your kidneys work, they block poisons and chemicals from your blood.
Coach, I've heard that 1 in 9 Americans have some form of kidney disease. What can we do to fight back?
Join me, Coach Kyle Whittingham, and be part of the winning team against kidney disease. Donate your used car or truck to the Kidney Foundation. Your car will be towed for free, and you'll get a receipt for a tax deduction. Tell them how to do that, Bill.
Donate your car to the Kidney Foundation today and make your car a kidney car. Cars to save lives. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS. That's TOW CARS. Cars with a K. 1-800-TOW-CAR.
Every year, the National Kidney Foundation helps individuals and families affected by kidney disease. Help them out by making your car a kidney car. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Whether it's a small clog or a larger mainline sewer drain issue, the experienced technicians at Yes are ready to solve all of your drain problems. Take advantage of our 83 or It's Free mainline drain clearing special. Feel secure knowing the trusted professionals at Yes guarantee that if we can't clear it, you don't pay for it. Visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
Copiers, printers, service, and supplies are just the beginning. Les Olson IT is the premier source for your business's structured cabling, IT, software, telephones, and security systems. We partner with you to find the ideal solution to all of your office technology needs. Tell us your goals and we'll get you there. Find out more at lesolson.com.
Les Olson IT.
Hey, BYU football fans, come see KSL's own Mitch Harper this Friday, November 17th at Macy's Grocery Store in Orem, 800 North State Street from 4 to 7 p.m. Fun, prizes, and chances to win tickets to the BYU-Oklahoma football game or a $50 Macy's gift card. You'll have multiple chances to win every hour. And during the broadcast, be sure to visit the Macy's Meat Department and pick up some of their easy meals. They're all cut, seasoned, and prepared for you. Just put them on the grill or in the oven and you have dinner in a snap. Those meals are perfect for dinner or any tailgate party. So celebrate the football season and join KSL's own Mitch Harper this Friday, November 17th at Macy's Tailgate in Orem from 4 to 7 p.m. Food, activities for the family, and enter to win tickets to the BYU-Oklahoma football game or a $50 Macy's gift card. Macy's. Happy shopping.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. I've got to tell you about the shopping trip that Dee and I just had at the Western Nut Company. We went in there to pick up things for upcoming events and dinners and hostess gifts, and you walk through the doors, and it is just overwhelmingly Christmas. It is beautiful. As a matter of fact, a woman just in front of us was clearing the shelves of decorative items, anticipating the big Thanksgiving dinner. You're going to find all of the nuts that you have loved for years, the goodies. One woman next to me was asking, hey, where are the chocolate-covered cinnamon bears? I happen to know right where they are. They're a personal favorite of mine as well. The Paul's Brittles and popcorn. You know, Western Nut Company has been doing this now for almost 60 years. For our family, it just wouldn't be Christmas without the Western Nut Company. Right now would be the perfect time to take care of the corporate gift-giving things for your business at Western Nut Company, 434 South on 3rd West, or go online, westernnut.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Join KSL in the movie show this Friday from 9 to noon at My Hearing Centers, 8941 South, 700 East, Suite 203 in Sandy.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. And as we've been covering throughout the day today, President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, passed away late Sunday evening at the age of 95. He was an extraordinary individual. He was a devoted disciple of Jesus Christ, a world religious leader, a bridge builder, someone who worked in interfaith and who always found the one to minister to. And I wanted to share just some closing thoughts as we round out our coverage today here on Inside Sources, and give you some of President Ballard in his own words. He spoke in the General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ over 80 times. He spoke thousands of times from pulpits around the world. But his most important ministry and his most important message were those personal moments where he actually showed what I think he did in his final address, as he talked about his failing eyesight. But it is something that he had done for almost 50 years as a world religious leader. He had taught people that you have to walk by faith and not by sight. It was something he was very familiar with. I actually want to go back to 2019. President M. Russell Ballard visited Joseph Smith's birthplace in Sharon, Vermont. He was accompanied by Elder D. Todd Christofferson. And, of course, President Ballard has a unique connection to Joseph Smith, to Hiram Smith, President Ballard's great-great-grandfather, great-great-uncle. President Ballard, of course, has a bust of 3 renowned church leaders in his office. And here, this was in 2019. He was 91 years of age, but it still gives you some perspective of the urgency he felt for the work and the important link that he was in both the history of the church and the future of the Church of Jesus Christ.
I've got the bust of Joseph S. Smith and Joseph and Hiram, and I look at them and I think I hear him say, "Get going, boy, do something worthwhile. Tell the world what's happened." So, to me, I get nudged big time when I see them and see what they did and what they gave. Then I feel obligated to do everything I can to declare and to teach that the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ is once again upon the earth. And that's because in this little cottage, on December 23rd, 1805, a little boy was born named Joseph.
President Ballard talked about how whenever God has an important thing to happen in the world history, a baby is born. And there he was in Sharon, Vermont, where the founding president and prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Joseph Smith, was born. It was a powerful moment. I was able to witness that and to watch that great emotion, and to see someone in their 90s feel nudged, and to feel that those who had gone before him were saying, "Come on, boy, do something with your life. Get going. Tell the world what has happened." Of course, during this year's General Conference in October, President Ballard reflected on his nearly 50 years as a general authority in the Church of Jesus Christ. I think it's important to hear this in his own words.
In 50 years, brothers and sisters, I've had the privilege to cover the world in my assignment as a general authority of the church. It's been a wonderful blessing. There's I think almost all the parts of the world I've got pretty close to. I've met with members of the church all over the world. Oh, how I love you. What a glorious experience that's been to look into your faces, be in your presence, and feel your love that you have for the Lord and for the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ. May our Heavenly Father watch over us now and bless all the proceedings of the conference. May we have the Spirit of the Lord well up in our hearts, and may our love for the gospel of Jesus Christ and our beloved Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ, increase, and our commitment to serve him and to strive to keep his commandments and try to be more like him.
That was President M. Russell Ballard in October. He was so determined to deliver that message to the world. And so we will conclude today in his own words, President M. Russell Ballard's final words, not just to the members of the Church of Jesus Christ, but to friends of the church and individuals all around the world.
I leave you my witness and testimony that I know that Jesus is the Christ. He is our Savior, our Redeemer. He is our best friend in the